Hello everybody, welcome back to It's Current Year for another quick battle replay, or not so much a quick battle replay, a multiplayer replay against Umais, who I took on in Zedagen's Showdown of the Lords tournament over the weekend. So I thought I would go back through my games from that tournament, which I had a lot of fun in. It was my first foray into the tournament scene, and just go through my games. It was a lot of fun. It used obviously a randomized Lord picker, so the players they did have the opportunity to re-roll and that sort of thing if they didn't like the Lord or the matchup that they got, but they were at the mercy of the random generator. So this is the first game from the series. My opponent Umais rolled an Archmage of Shadows. I believe this was his. I believe it was a reroll. I think he might have got another Lord initially in this game. I rolled up a Glade Lord, the Glade Lady more specifically. So we'll go through the armies really quickly. We'll try and make this quick because there are a couple of games that I will be casting in this video. So he's got a pretty cheap front line, Spearman, Loth and Seaguard, and a unit of archers here in the second line. Loth and Seaguard with shields are great against Wood Elves, obviously with their shield block chance. They just trade quite favourably with a lot of the threats of the Wood Elves. 2 units of Dragon Princes, a Lion Chariot, and an Archmage of Shadows, who has Melkoth's and Enfeebling Foe, as well as the Armour of the Stars and the Book of Hoth. He's also taken a Mage of Death with just Spirit Leech for some extra sort of, I guess, just point and click style damage. We'll put it on a slow play. We'll put it on a slow play while I go through my army. So I've taken 2 units of Dryads just for a bit of speed on the flanks, shielded Eternal Guard, and 1 non-shielded in the back. I took a unit of Wildwood Rangers because I had a bit of money left over and I wanted some punch in the military for in the sort of frontline engagements, but that was probably not a great pick, and then going to struggle, as you'll see soon. I also took 2 units of Wild Riders with shields, one of which is the Wild Hunters of Kurnos, 2 units of Glade Riders with Hagbane tips, as well as a Sisters of the Thorn. As I said before, my lord is the Glade Lady. She's just taken Praevaneth Raymer and the Arrow of Kurnos, so she's fairly cheap, and I've taken a Branch Wraith with Earthblood and the Penumbral Pendulum. So chance for a few pendulums to, on the High Elf infantry line here. So as you see, he's taken the high ground and he's going to fan out. It's going to be obviously a bit of strife for me to get through this front line just with their melee defense, and then obviously the second line raining arrows down on me also do have the potential to hold me out. Obviously, 52 melee defense on Loth and Seaguard with shields is very decent for a hybrid unit. So an early Spirit Leech going down here. I was sort of just scoping out what my opponent had at this stage before I sort of decided to act with my cavalry. Dragon Princes are usually are very decent units. Their physical resistance can be actually quite tough for other cavalry to break through, and a lot of factions that don't have access to a lot of magical attacks. I do have magical shooting attacks on the Glade Riders, but obviously with their armor and their shield block chance, it's still not going to be that effective. And here's what I mean here with the Wildwood Rangers. They're just getting absolutely swamped. 40 armor isn't enough to see off even just the, the low level shooting of regular archers and Loth and Seaguard. So pretty frustrating loss there in the early game. The Dragon Prince is here doing a bit of a lancing charge just to see off the Dryads who are trying to lap around this flank and get into the Loth and Seaguard, which does leave me with a bit of ascendancy over here. And as you see here, as I said before, Loth and Seaguard against the Wood Elves are just so cost effective. They're so great at taking out the mobile threats for the Wood Elves that they do really rely on. He does get a Melkoth's and an Enfeebling Foe down here on my Wild Riders, so their stats are absolutely tanked. And this is a big mistake by me, charging into Spearman with the Wild Hunters. Yeah, there are some Dragon Princes in there, so obviously the anti-large is going to be good, but that's just a massive misplay from me. I think I was trying to micro my Wildwood Rangers back just to get them out of the firing arc, but it's cost me 2 of my I guess heavy hitters in that frontline fight there. So Spirit Leech also going down on the Wild Hunters. Good uses of Spirit Leeches there on those two. So I'm sort of just retreating with my cavalry back to behind my spear line, because I figure that way I can then pick my engagements a little bit and make him, I've got something to micro through. But again, I'm just struggling to get good engagements. The archers are back on the Wildwood Rangers here. They're probably not even going to get into combat. We've got a Melkoth's going down here on the Sisters, which is, their physical resistance is very high, so any magic damage you can get on them is significant. Trying to sort of bait the Dragon Princes into a charge here on the Hagbane Riders, so then I can get a counter charge off with my Wild Riders before pulling out with both units of the Hagbane tips and going up around the flank. But again, the flank is really well protected. Good play bit here by Yumais. He's a pretty clever player, and that was a misclick. Prayer of Anathema was supposed to go down on the Mage of Death there, so unfortunate that I got the Lothan Seaguard. We see a nice pendulum going through the front line here, which might allow me to start pushing through, but you see here just the Dragon Princes have been so hard for me to kill, and now they've managed to wrap up both my units of Wild Riders and both my Hagbane Riders as well as the Sisters of Thorn. So this has just been a disastrous cavalry engagement here for me in this game. I've managed to push through with one unit of Eternal Guard, but they aren't shielded, and now the Lothan Seaguard, who have sat back here fairly without too many threats being put upon them, have started to take a toll on them. I do have some Dryads and some Hagbane Riders coming down over here, but I'm sort of just running out of options. The Dragon Princes are just bouncing between engagements where they choose. The Sisters of the Thorn, might have a bit of punching power, but the Dragon Princes here are so healthy. There's plenty of fire left. I came in to try and snipe the Deathcaster with my Glade Lord, but I got pushed off there. And as I said, I'm just running out of options at this stage. I haven't had anything that could effectively punch through the Spearmen. Glade Guard obviously do win that as the fight goes on, but it's a grind. It's not a quick win for the Glade Guard. So it's held out long enough for his Dragon Princes to do work, and for these guys here to expend most of their ammunition. And the balance of power now obviously indicating that things are going pretty well for the High Elves. So we'll put it on a little bit of a fast play. I do get a nice pendulum in here, so I think I'm giving myself half a chance here. But again, just the Dragon Princes proved too much. I couldn't get favourable cavalry engagements. He didn't really have to worry too much about micromanaging his infantry because it's sturdy and reliable. So that was game one. In hindsight, this was my first pick, my first roll, and having got a good lord in a tournament where the potential to get a crappy lord was I guess much higher. I saw the Glade Lady and I thought, I'll stay with that. I can make that work. And I do play a bit of Wood Elves, so I felt comfortable playing this. But Wood Elves versus High Elves, I think is a fairly High Elf favoured matchup. So in hindsight, I still had a couple of rerolls up my sleeve. I could have re-rolled this and looked for just a better matchup on army to army, but I think given the fact that I was given a relatively decent lord to use, I stuck with it, and it might have been a bit of a mistake. But well played to Yumais. Obviously, this is a great, it's a pretty solid anti-Wood Elves list from the High Elves here, and he made it work really well. Really nice pick of Dragon Princes. Lion Chariots you don't see too often against Wood Elves, but I guess they did a bit of work. I didn't really have much that could effectively kill them. The Wild Hunters might have been able to, but yeah, good. Not a great start, but a good match in a matchup where I'm not particularly favoured. So on to the next one, on to game two. All right, so game two, and again I got a really good Lord pick. This was a reroll, but getting Alariel obviously, and High Elves are a faction that I am comfortable with. Getting Alariel was nice. This was also a reroll from Yumais, but he decided to stay with the Fleet Admiral for the Vampire Coast, and he decided to play the Sartosa faction as well. So as you see here, the Fleet Admiral on a crab with polearms, who has taken just Invocation of Nehek, as well as the as well as the Drowned Dead summon ability. Also taking the Wand of Jet to sort of give himself some more Winds of Magic. So pretty much stock standard. Front line of, well, we've got some Sartosa Free Company, which is on the flanks there. So some Livian allies of the zombie pirates here, but then just zombie pirate deckhand mob with their pole arms, one of the regular ones here, as well as a couple of units of bombers. The Black Spot and the Shade Wraith Gunners on that side, so some real firepower there, but then just a couple of zombie pirate gunnery mob with handguns. We have another unit of handguns in the back, as well as some Rottian Prometheans, and he has taken a little battery of 3 mortars and a carronade up the back. So no gunnery white, which you might see in a sort of an artillery heavy build, but lots of guns, pretty wide, as you'd basically expect to see from the Vampire Coast. For my own forces, I've also taken some artillery, 2 units of Eagle Claw bolt throwers, 4 units of rangers in the front line, obviously cut through deckhands very, very quickly. 3 units of spearmen, bit of shielded infantry. Also useful if I had sort of dogs, or I guess they'll do okay against the Prometheans, but if I came up against Morngulls or things like that as well. And just more shielded bodies. 3 units of Lothan Seaguard with shields, as well as 2 units of archers for a bit of my own firepower. Good for wearing down bombers, handgunners. They trade quite well with, obviously with their shield block chance, and just their superior range. And then I have 3 units of Illyrian Reavers. These 2, one behind the main force here, and these 2 were camping the back lines to just get the jump on any Vanguard deployed dogs that he might have had. As I said before, Alariel, so obviously a very strong Lord pick here. Good roll for me. I've taken Earthblood and Shield of Thorns, as well as Arcane Unforging, and she's also taken the Star of Avalon. She does have the magical damage and immune to psych bubble there, so good for her to, I guess, particularly against the Shade Wraith Gunners here, might be important. So some shots coming into my Rangers. Your Rangers take this reasonably well, obviously with their loose formation. The Mortars here probably going to turn their attention pretty quickly to my Archers or my Lothan Seaguard, and I'm starting to move the Illyrian Reavers up around the flank here to try and lap round. Now I notice, obviously in the back line here, apart from the crabs, there's not a lot to sort of protect him, so if I can get dangerous with my Reavers and really start to sort of get back there, you know, I can really sort of go down the line and take care of a lot of these cannon pieces. Probably not a great idea targeting the zombie pirates. I mean, the Rangers will do well enough against them. I need to turn my attention to the bombers, which I have now, because they're obviously going to devastate my infantry. But he's got some really good firing lines here, Yamais, and some early volleys, really doing a bit of a number on my Rangers. These ones, in fact, have already broken. We'll see on this side, these Rangers will do alright. This is a mistake. I should have pushed these guys through the gap and been pressuring the Shade Wraith Gunners and the Black Spot. And you see just an absolute torrent of fire on either side here. These Illyrian Reavers probably aren't going to make it to the front line here. These Reavers are coming back in to try and shut down these ones, but they're going to get a few volleys put into them. And the frontline fight hasn't really gone too well in the early game for me. My Archers have got some value, and I'm pushing through obviously with these Spearmen. But it's probably a pretty good start here by the Vampire Coast. The one area that I have done well is getting the Mortars offline, which means my Archer line can start to sort of advance a little bit more safely. And without any other sort of better options, I've decided to just try and buff the healing of this flank here. I'm doing okay. I know I need to sort of try and push through and get some work into the Black Spot and the Shade Wraith Gunners, so that was really the only part where I was too properly benched up. As I said before, the Mortars are going down. This unit has actually been completely destroyed by one of the bolt throwers. This one's lost one of their cannon pieces, and my Illyrian Reavers here are rallying from an earlier route and are coming in now to try and pressure the cannons and the back line. My tattered remains of my infantry is rallying and coming back in, but even at this stage, I wasn't feeling too great about this fight. I felt like I had a list that could deal with what the Vampire Coast had taken, but sadly I just wasn't getting very good engagements and very good trades. The handguns are, he's got a number of units of handguns still pretty online, but I am getting into the back now with the Reavers. They will kill cannon crews and mortar crews very quickly. Both of these mortar pieces have been completely put offline by my own repeater bolt throwers, who have now turned their attention to this mortar. So I'm getting some good trades in the artillery game. I have also completely, even though it's cost me 1 Reavers, I'll take that trade, getting that cannon offline. And we see over here, as I said before, trying to push through to the Shade Wraith Gunners, and I see this with Alariel, and I see an opportunity here to maybe get myself back in the game. I've got some rallying infantry here, as well as reasonable amounts of ammo on all of my archers, so I'm feeling like the High Elves may get a little bit of a second wind at this point, and you'll see as Alariel comes through here, I mean, the Shade Wraith Gunners have woeful combat stats, but if nothing else, they have a lot of physical resistance as a result of being an ethereal unit. So, got an Arcane Unforging going down in here, trying to get some damage into the Fleet Admiral. I also have some Illyrian Reavers coming back in and charging the black spot. And you'll see here that these Spearmen actually have magic attacks at the moment, thanks to Alariel's presence. So, and you see how quickly even Spearmen with their own sort of modest melee attack are working down these Shade Wraith Gunners. These are offline now. They're going to crumble out momentarily. And at this point, I'm starting to feel a lot better about my prospects. I've got him on the back row. I've finally worked through most of his infantry. The Rotting Prometheans here have pushed through to these archers, but I've rotated both of these Eagle Claw bolt throwers, who have both generated a fair bit of value, onto them, and they are starting to crumble with the anti-large and armor piercing of the repeater bolt throwers. We have another healing blob going down here, and I basically sense an opportunity here to try and work down the crab. Obviously there's some really nice sort of crossfire coming in, as well as a summon, which is going to be pretty painful for these guys, but I figured I needed to use that heal, as I may not get another chance to do so. But I'm slowly but steadily starting to push on the forces here. I've expended most of my ammo, but I feel confident that I can still outtrade the handguns with the remaining ammo that I have. These ones are obviously being compromised by spears, and obviously the cannon crews here are literally just cannon crews that are being thrown into the fight now with 10-6 melee attack, melee defense. But I'm starting to run low on ammo, but I figure I have at the very least enough to work off this unit of handgunners and perhaps also the black spot. The only thing that's a little bit worrying is the fact that a unit of Sartosa Free Company have gotten into one of the Eagle Claw bolt throwers. This one's firing at them. Should probably be choosing a different target now. But Alariel is taking a lot of damage. She does have still a little bit of Winds of Magic left, if memory serves, but she's happy to take a run for the forest to try and at least block some shots or get hidden. And the continued summons from the Fleet Admiral here are, I guess, just giving his handgunners a bit of time to sort of reform here around sort of a last sort of stand position. At the very least, I've got some decent bodies to throw into the fight once I guess expend my ammunition. Loth and Seaguard are decent combatants. These guns are coming in now, obviously with their anti-large bonus. They're going to do more damage than Rangers and that sort of stuff on this Fleet Admiral. But I also have one of my repeater bolt thrower crews coming back, and I see this Sartosa Free Company here, and I decide I've got to just make a run through it. I have enough crew to man 2 pieces. They have a little bit of ammunition left, 8 shots in fact. If I can get some single bolts into the Vampire Fleet Admiral, he might start to crumble, and then the rest here is pretty much scraps that I can pick off. Unfortunately, he has yet another summon coming down, but it is a regular deckhand mob, so I'm at least not going to get shot. And the melee defense, obviously, of 40 on the Loth and Seaguard is going to be, they're not going to make particularly regular contact with them. And I do manage to take out the Vampire Fleet Admiral here. It has It has cost me Alariel. Unfortunately, Alariel has gone down. I think she was on her way in to try and get around here out the back away from these handgunners, but she did get shot down. And the Sartosa Free Company have pushed off my Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. But at the very least, I have managed to kill the Fleet Admiral. And I feel like with what I have left, I at least have the advantage in terms of a little bit of durability. You know, shields here, high melee defense across most of my units, or these 3 units of Loth and Seaguard at least. It's going to be enough to, crumble down the remainder of the forces. And as we just go on a bit of a fast play here, you see we hit army losses, and we do manage to take the battle. So another really close battle. Obviously, the Vampire Coast are absolutely a top tier faction within Total War Warhammer 2, but I feel like the High Elves actually have a pretty good matchup against them. They trade quite efficiently in the shooting game. They obviously have good responses to scurvy dogs and things like that with Illyrian Reavers, and can use their speed to pick the gaps and get into handgunners. Bolt throwers actually trade reasonably well with the artillery pieces of the Vampire Coast. And obviously getting Alariel as well was Alariel is a top tier legendary lord. There's no doubt about it, with her ability to heal and provide obviously being a magic, a casting lord is always a pretty good option, a pretty strong option for most factions. So that was game 2, another really close one there. We'll move into game 3. Did a reroll on my first lord and got a Croxigor Ancient. Yamais also did a reroll. I can't remember what he got first. I think it might have been Durthu, and he rolled into a General of the Empire. I don't mind the Croxigor Ancient. At the very least, he is an absolute combat powerhouse, and given the fact that I wasn't going to be going up against Karl or Boris or someone like that, I felt quite comfortable with the Croxigor Ancient against the General of the Empire. So we'll go through the armies very quickly before we put it on play. Yumai's obviously this was an impression I did have of him from what I'd seen early, is he does love using a lot of range play, and that's certainly been the case in all of these battles so far. So 4 units of archers, a unit of huntsmen out the back here, spearmen, swordsmen, and halberdiers sort of crisscrossed in throughout the archers here, and he has taken a nice little pack of regular war wagons. So a cool unit, something a little bit different there, as well as some Reichsguard and the Zintler's Reichsguard forward deployed up on the hill here. Again, an Amethyst Wizard, so Spirit Leech as well as Soul Blight. And in the air we have a General of the Empire on a Pegasus, who looks like that has been completely stripped back, basically has just taken hold the line. So a pretty cheap force, aside from maybe the Reichsguard and the war wagons, but pretty wide, and obviously with a lot of missile play. For my own force, 3 units of Chameleon Skinks out the front, as well as 3 Pterodons over here. 4 units of Skink Cohort in the front lines here. 2 units of Saurus Warriors with shields. The Legion of Shakwa, who's obviously missile resistance buff is going to be pretty important. The Cohort of Sotek, a Croxigor Ancient who has just taken his abilities, again relatively cheap, and a Skink Priest of Beasts with Flock of Doom and the Manticore summons. In the rear I also have 2 units of regular Cold One Riders. One of them at the moment is being Spirit Leeched. So as we get the battle underway, I sort of can't see a lot of his force at the moment, but I do see the war wagons coming up, so I do retreat my Chameleon Skinks back just to give them a bit of buffering from the force here with my front line. But as I move a bit closer, I sort of see some infantry sort of creeping out of the trees over here, and figure out that's where my battle line will be heading. So obviously the 360-degree firing range on the war wagons is pretty decent, allowing them to sort of retreat into a favourable position and still put some fire in. But at the moment they're sort of firing at Skink Cohorts, which I'm not too worried at all about. He'll also get a Lancing Charge in with those Reichsguard. I'm trying to sort of get my own cavalry to respond to that here. They'll have a reasonably good matchup, given they are armor piercing, and that the Reichsguard both variants of these Reichsguard are the anti-infantry bonus. We're also getting a nice bit of fire in with our chameleon skinks. So probably not the my skink cohorts have taken a bit of damage, but probably not all that disastrous for me, given he's taken some damage on this Reichsguard, and in fact they are going to sort of get pinned in now and take another charge from this unit of Cold One Riders. So as the front lines are about to meet, again, archers into skink cohorts, not really a bother for me. I decided I sort of underestimated, I think, the strength of the General of the Empire. He's not a great combat lord for a combat lord, but he does rout off one of my units of Pterodon Riders, and I decided to abandon that fight and maybe go look for some rock drops. But you see now the front lines are starting to engage. Halberds against skinks. I think the halberds will win that just because they have decent melee defense, but it'll be a bit of a wet noodle contest. And I'm starting to get my my infantry in here now, where I think I have a little bit of an advantage. This was originally a mistake, doubling up the cohort of Sotek behind a unit of skinks. They want to be fighting something in their own right, so they're getting as many attack animations in as possible. I'm also getting a bit sloppy here with my Pterodon Riders, and they're getting shot up a little bit before I come in and look for some drop rocks. Also need to be a little bit more proactive here with my Coldon Riders that have had a dropped attack order from earlier. These ones have come in and they're trying to punch through, but again, they've gotten through onto the Zintler's Reichsguard, so not a bad matchup for them. They have taken a Soul Blight, so their weapon damage and armor has been debuffed, and they're getting a fair bit of fire put into them from these archers who are just starting to really the arrow fire from them is starting to really add up. I decided to dive bomb down. I did get a rock drop, but obviously with the loose formation, they're not all that effective, and I decided I might be able to get into combat. But again, the huntsmen here turn around, and with their anti-large proving to be a factor, managed to rout the Pterodon Riders here off. And I'm trying to just pick up some shots where I can, mainly into the Reichsguard, poison them and not allow them to flee. But sort of just trying, I guess, to get through into the back lines. This is probably, I'm going this way, but then I see sort of a bit of juicy real estate here in the archers. Again, Saurus Warriors, decent armor, 60s, decent, and a shield bonus. So I'm pushing through here just to try and screen back the archers. I'm also pushing through with my chameleon skinks, because I know a couple of volleys from them will really put a bit of hurt onto the archers here. One of my summoned manticores has got into the Amethyst Wizard, did break him and rout him, and I think in the next attack animation or two will actually kill him before he gets off the battlefield. In either case, that Manticore is going to shunt both of these guys off to the white line. But again, I'm just not being able to push through and get any pressure on these archers, and they're starting to add up now. And my Croxigore Ancient is actually really getting worked down. The Legion of Shakwa here as well. I don't know why, because they definitely were given an attack order, but they're sort of just sitting here as well. They do have their missile resist ability still on cooldown, unfortunately, as well. So they're not really accruing me any value at the moment, and I'm just getting a little bit sloppy at this stage. I'm looking over here to micro my chameleon skinks sort of around and get shots into you can see with every volley they're doing a lot of damage to these archers, but now they're starting to get sort of set upon by the war wagons. My second Manticore summon is coming down, and with this I think again I'm trying to put pressure onto this huntsman unit. We'll see in a second where that goes, but this fight here it's just a grind, and it's just buying time for these archers. Obviously the Zintler's Reichsguard coming back into the Legion of Shakwa here is a good engagement for me. They're very beat up, 10 unit models, they'll be pushed off in a moment, and I'm pushed through the lines here, and I've just thought, at the very least I can get this guy to screen back. He needs to do some work for me. He hasn't really netted me a lot of value. 39 kills, it's not great, but with these war wagons starting to focus him down, he is unfortunately going to buy the farm and be killed here, which is very frustrating at the moment, given I'm looking a little bit thin elsewhere. These chameleon skinks have been real MVPs for me here at the moment. The archers here are not obviously well armored. They do take a lot of damage from the chameleon skinks and don't really get a good trade back given the loose formation and the missile resistance of Chameleon Skinks. But the frontline fighting's starting to turn. The halberds here have really just stood firm and held the line. My Legion of Shakwa is really healthy, but they just haven't really done enough at the moment. 22 kills is... obviously they're a solid defensive unit, but they just haven't been able to really get any value other than seeing off that tattered unit of Reichsguard. But I feel with this Chameleon Skinks at least getting into the backline here, I'm at least in the game. They have a little bit of ammo left, so they might be able to clear off the last of these archer units if they can get in there. And once they get into combat, they will beat these guys in combat with their poison and obviously slightly better combat stats. But these wagons now that they've expended their ammo, are going to be difficult to deal with. I don't really have any mass. My cold ones have been taken out of the game. My Legion of Shakwa are wrapped up in combat and aren't going to get their brace in against them. So these guys, once they're out of ammo, can be really sort of a really good dual-purpose unit. I also have this this General of the Empire to contend with. He's pretty beaten up, but again, I don't really have anything that's just going to be able to come in and nuke him down and really work him down. And as you see here, good play by Uemi's, trying to push these guys away and keep them out of the fight. One's going to rout off, and I think the other one's going to rout off in a couple of seconds too. So the Legion of Shakwa are holding the line. This General of the Empire is seeing off my Skink Priest, but you see here the balance of power is starting to not look so favourable, with some infantry coming back here just to buy time for basically the chariots to just keep cycle charging me. The Chameleon Skinks coming back in, gives me more bodies, but they don't really give me a lot of killing power outside of it being handy that they have poison attacks. And we sort of get into this period of the game, sort of into the death throes for the Lizardman. You see here the archers coming back online. The war wagons just running laps. The Legion of Shakwa have really held well. They're up to 60 kills now, but it's sort of just too little, too late. His general's still alive, which is holding the balance of power in his favour quite well. He's just slowly working me down with the remainder of the ammo and getting favourable trades with the war wagons. So that was game 3. Another really close game. So three close games. As I said, I just didn't get enough value out of my Cold One Riders. They probably could have been a little bit more impactful in seeing off the early charges by the Reichsguard and then getting into the backlines. The inclusion of halberds was probably a good one by Uemi's. It just held the front line longer. There's lots of kills on these Saurus warriors, but the archers probably got as much value as you could ask from them, and the war wagons just were able to pick their targets as they pleased. I didn't have anything to shut them down. Again, the Cold One Riders could have been good in that, just with their mass pinning them down. The Pterodon Riders were probably pretty badly mismanaged by me as well. I only got one drop rock off. I tried. I got a 3-on-1 with all my Pterodon Riders with the General of the Empire a little bit overextended, but I probably underestimated the General of the Empire as a moderately good combat lord, but I probably still underestimated him in regards to his fight against 3 units of Pterodon. So that was a bit of a waste. The Chameleon Skinks really held it together and actually ended up clearing off the backline well. But yeah, another really close game and a good game by Uemi's, who progressed from here, knocking me out of the tournament. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. My first sort of exposure to any tournament play. Really enjoyed it. It was Zedagen's Showdown of the Lords. So thanks to him for putting it on. Well done to all the other players, in particular Papa Palpatine, who ended up going on and winning the tournament. So yeah, I thought I'd just do a bit of a recap of those 3 games. Obviously, it wasn't cast. They weren't cast live, and yeah, they were 3 pretty good games in the end. 3 pretty clear, pretty close games between a player that I was obviously quite evenly matched against. So yeah, thanks for checking it out, and we'll be back with more replays soon. Take care.